Greg, let's talk about what it is you just brought up there with the New York Knicks, because Stugotz,
yes,
the Cavs are now a player in the East, and I felt like the Donovan Mitchell trade was less about the Cavs, and I do believe like they got good fast, than it was about New York swinging and missing on Donovan Mitchell, having whatever it was. They didn't want to give up 4 unprotected. They only wanted to give up 2 unprotected. All the guys they've gotten rid of recently, including Julius Randle that they're talking about getting rid of, they have to staple assets in order to get rid of them, Stugotz. And you got the New York Knicks to be run by CAA. You gave this power to people who are not in the power broker. They're not in the basketball evaluation business because they were going to land you people like Donovan Mitchell. Do I have it wrong when I say that trade was less about the Cavs?
It was more about the Knicks not getting him, yes, and not being willing to give up the picks to get Donovan Mitchell. It's like, listen, Dan, they signed R.J. Barrett. It's going to take a guy like R.J. Barrett, who's been very good his first 3 seasons, for the Knicks to get back to being what that fan base wants them to be, meaning he has to be good enough, and I think he will be, where superstars will want to go to New York and sign as free agents. I'm kind of okay with the Knicks not giving up all of those picks for Donovan Mitchell, who really, if he's your best guy, and he was Utah's best guy, what's that going to get you? A trip to the conference finals? Maybe. It's not going to get you an NBA championship.
You have R.J. Barrett being a lot better than Donovan Mitchell?
R.J. Barrett has a chance to be a really special player. He does. And his dad played for the Knicks, and he's a guy that wants to play his entire career there. So if he could pan out and be really, really good enough where other players want to play with him, then that's the only way. Because, Dan, players don't want to go there.
You can have,
whether it's the owner, whatever it is, players just sit. They've told you out loud, hey.
Jalen Brunson just went there.
Well, and that's another. His dad played for the Knicks, but Kevin Durant didn't. He went to Brooklyn. Kyrie Irving didn't. He went to Brooklyn. Like the superstars, the best of the best players, they don't seem like they want to play for James Dolan.
Didn't you get that management team because that's what they were going to do? What's the point of having that management team if what you're going to do is just leave the basketball evaluation of whether R.J. Barrett is going to be Donovan Mitchell to them? Like, you got them so they'd be able to get around the obstruction that is your owner. You got them because of relationships, not because
to mask the owner because of relationships.
You've got sports agents,
but also to be responsible, Dan.
You've got sports agents running the Knicks. Their only qualification to run the Knicks is that they're good at the relationship business. The Knicks couldn't do it the legal way because they got people who just wanted to play there, so they tried to do it with the loophole shortcut of, well, just hire the agency that represents all of these players and see if they can broker these deals for us, and that also has not worked. So now you're good with the Knicks being managed on basketball evaluation by people who are there because they're in the relationship business, not because they're in the evaluation of basketball players' business.
I'm not good with the Knicks at all, to be honest with you. It's been a disaster the last 2 decades. I mean, they have been the laughingstock or one of the laughingstocks of the NBA, but you can't force Utah to trade Donovan Mitchell to the Knicks, even if you have the relationships. They're going to take the better deal. They took the better deal.
I know, but they were in charge of the number of picks in the deal. And now the Cleveland Cavs of Garland and Mobley and LeVert, and they traded their depth basically for Donovan Mitchell, and they're a good deal better now than the Knicks. And they're young. And now the Knicks are behind Cleveland by a good amount because you could not get Donovan Mitchell. What's the point of getting those people to run your franchise if what they're going to do is protect the picks?
They're a good deal better than the Knicks. I agree with you. But are they a good deal better than Boston, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, the Heat, Toronto? Like, what does this really do for... I'm okay with the Knicks passing on Donovan Mitchell. Like, what does it do for them? It makes the Cavaliers the 7th best team in the East.
No, they're better than that.
They're better than that.
I just gave you Heat, Celtics, Bucks, Sixers, Raptors. And the Nets. And the Hawks.
As a Heat fan... I'm looking at Miami staying static in this offseason. I'm looking at Cleveland adding Donovan Mitchell.
They've fallen behind.
Like Cleveland, when they were healthy last year, like they had a calamity with health towards the end of the season. When they were healthy, they were 4 or 5 seed in the East. That's without Donovan Mitchell. So if they manage to make this fit, Evan Mobley is one of the most talented young players in the league. They have 3 All-Stars on their team now, which is what you want. Like, and they're amassing talent. They still have a reasonable amount of depth. I do think, though, with the Knicks, Dan, it is worth noting, and I heard this, I believe it was on the Low Post, where Leon Rose, who's one of the main people who's in charge of the relationships in New York, was the agent for Carmelo Anthony when he forced his way out of Denver. The Knicks sent too many picks to Denver and thus had nothing left to trade to add to the team with Carmelo Anthony. So I think they're trying to be somewhat judicious about how they spend their draft capital in order to go get superstars, so they still have something left to build once a superstar gets there. The thing is that the market has gone so crazy that you don't get Donovan Mitchell if you don't give up the full freight of picks. And Danny Ainge is literally just looking at a spreadsheet saying, how many unprotected picks are you giving me? That's what I want. Not players are almost irrelevant in the trading of superstars now. It's just about, can I potentially hook you in 2028 with your bad team so I can draft fourth? That's literally the entire calculus at this point for trading for superstars.
But you want to mortgage everything to get Donovan Mitchell?
I would not if I were the Knicks. I actually think the Knicks were prudent here in not going for it because, first off, I don't understand the fit of Brunson and Mitchell as a backcourt, how that's going to work either sharing the ball or defensively. So, and I don't think, to your point, Stugotz, that Donovan Mitchell turns them into, I think Cleveland has much more as a base to go and win games than the Knicks do. I think Cleveland has made a huge step forward here. It makes sense for them. I never thought it made sense for the Knicks.
My larger point on when you talk about organizations leading and having vision, my larger point is you can keep hoping that way, Stugotz, that the people in charge now are the correct ones on evaluation.
Sure.
But they are playing so far behind the game in this respect. Leon Rose used to be LeBron's agent. LeBron said, no, thank you, don't need that. I'll get my own people. I'll be in charge of me. Don't need you.
Right.
And what does he do? He spins that out into, well, I'll just run the Knicks. And now we're behind. And how are the Knicks going to do it? Well, we got to build super teams. We're not going to get anybody, but we're going to get the guy who gets us people. Oops, he doesn't get us people. Now he's in charge of basketball ops, and he doesn't get us people. And so what I'm saying is you get spun around like that. You can make the argument on whether they should have or should not have mortgaged future, but New York wants to be a star. God damn, did they celebrate that one victory over Atlanta in the streets in the playoffs, and they can't win without stars. You cannot win in that league without stars. And can they get them? Period. Not comma. Can they save the picks for 3 years from now? You're behind the game on vision and leadership at every turn. You made it as a 4 seed, and you told me you were ready. You celebrated in the streets as a 4 seed in the playoffs, and then you immediately tumble back, and now you're stapling assets to Julius Randle because nobody wants him. That's not vision and leadership. Like if you're always reacting and never at the head of the charge on leading, and the people in charge of you are just the people you got that were behind already because LeBron changed everything, that's how you fall into that quicksand we talked about before that isn't enough in the movies anymore, because organizationally, like, they can keep all the picks and hope in R.J. Barrett, but who's leading you?
Yeah, but why can't they build through the draft? Why can't that be the vision?
Because then you build an organization.
No, I know that's not why you got them.
Drafting players.
But I think those guys were brought in to get the best of the best superstars, not Donovan Mitchell. The hope was those guys could bring you Kyrie, Kevin Durant, Chris Paul, guys like that, and they failed there. So, I mean, I wouldn't give up for Kevin Durant. I'd give up all the picks. I would, but they're not going to get Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant doesn't want to play there. He's already made that clear. I'm not doing it for Mitchell. I was happy they didn't do it for Mitchell. And as far as these guys go who are running the organization, Dan, it's the best guys we've had in charge of this organization in many, many years. I'm okay with it.
Wow, Donovan Mitchell's young, though. I mean, he
Not
is the
really.
future. He's like 25, isn't he?
No.
I think he's like 27.
Okay, he's in his prime. I mean, he's good for a few years. You don't worry about him. Look, if you're the Knicks, why are you worried about keeping a 2028 draft pick? If they make that trade for Donovan Mitchell, everybody in New York, everybody who's a Knicks fan is happy right now. That's something. You got to make
Is it?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know if they're happy.
Where has it gotten them being prudent, quote unquote? Make a deal for a star.
Greg, you're right. I'm not sure the Knicks are an organization that should be about prudence, but at the same time, you know, Isaiah Thomas tried to run that team in a go grab whatever's available way, and it didn't work. They've tried everything. So you can basically dunk on the Knicks for whatever they do. It's just that they're heading towards this season as maybe a play-in team if they turn things around, and that's not where they want to be. So you might as well just take the swing. By the way, Donovan Mitchell will turn 26 tomorrow.
There you go. So I was right.
I didn't think he was that young. That's my bad.
For Cleveland, they've got like four all-star level talents under contract for the long term. Like, this is actually sound crazy to say. Credit to Dan Gilbert.
I mean, that's the best they can do. I would not give credit to Dan Gilbert given the amount of dysfunction and awful that you have to be, the incompetent you have to be for them to stumble into some of these picks. I remind you that they got LeBron back only because they got Luol Deng as a final piece for a championship run at some point, and they just sort of mismanaged their way into some of these things.
Who are these 4 All-Stars? Are you putting Jared Allen in there? Like, what are you doing here?
3 All-Stars, Garland and Mobley.
Jared Allen was an All-Star.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think I'm not sure if Garland has been one yet, but he might be on his way to becoming one. I think they have a really good team, and they've developed well, they've drafted well, and they've not gotten bailed out by LeBron. I actually sort of agree with them when they're like, no, we don't want LeBron to come back because we kind of have a thing going here, and it'll be the first time they've built a thing in 30 years.
When you go credit to Dan Gilbert, I really do want to evaluate this part of it for a second, because Stugotz last year was doing credit to Jerry Jones and just saying flatly, Jerry Jones is good at player evaluation.
Well, I mean, if Dak wouldn't have done a stupid-ass play, who knows where that season would have ended.
He's good at drafting.
But if you're in a position for 30 years, aren't you going to stumble into a few of them? Like, if you have no job jeopardy, if there's no actual consequences to your bad drafts, after 30 years, aren't you going to eventually get some good players? Like Dan Gilbert.
Not the Jets.
Dan Gilbert, if you're bad for 20 years, as Dan Gilbert has been, aren't you eventually going to get some players because they reward you for being bad by giving you high draft picks?
I mean, they had LeBron.
Yeah.
So
they got Kyrie.
Well, they had LeBron, and for 7 years they couldn't build around him. Like, think about how impossibly difficult that is. You had young LeBron, and you couldn't surround him with good players. So, I mean, that organization, and then they had 3 number 1 overall picks in 4 years.
LeBron didn't know what heat culture was at the time, though, and winning culture.
Right.
So he couldn't take that next step. It wasn't about what the Pats were doing.
That was before the super team era that he helped introduce.
That's right.
Basketball was a lot easier to win then. If you look at like the teams that are at the top of the sport, they all scored 85 points a game.
But there are stars and then there are superstars, right? Like you have Donovan Mitchell being a Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Giannis type player. No.
I think Evan Mobley, of those 4, is the player most likely to be that level of talent.
So better fit for the Cavs than for the Knicks, to your point.
Yes.
But
yes.
I would say, though, Stugotz, I would say Donovan Mitchell would be the best player you've had this century. It's like him or Carmelo. It's this century.
Amari for a month and a half was the MVP.